Here we go. He's just there. Hello, welcome to Become the Change live weekly hangout. My name's Sandy Levesque. I'm here with my trusty assistant, Chico. I was about to say Chico Levesque, but and I'm also joined tonight by Lisa Lotta Karsten in Sweden. Do you want to say hi, Lisa Lotta?
Hi.
So, welcome to the show. Apologies that we're starting a little bit late. If you were trying to connect at 9 o'clock or whatever time it is in your area, and there was nothing happening, and you're having to watch this later, I'm really sorry. I couldn't connect to the internet, and took a while to get actually connected. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we should be able to do this show without having to stop. And it's going to be about 30 minutes, quite short tonight. And we have an amazing woman to share with you. If you're watching this on my blog or Lisa Lotta's blog, you'll see a picture of her. Her name is LUBNA HUSSEIN. And just to give you a bit of background, if this is the first time you're tuning in, Become the Change is really dedicated to conscious activism and becoming the change you would like to see in the world. And sometimes what helps with doing that is hearing about what people have done before you, or whether that's 100 years ago or just a few years ago, like today's example, or even a month ago, like finding inspiring stories and case studies. And we actually work with the internet and helping people to know how to get to people on the internet, how to make sure people hear what you're doing and see what you're doing. So I just personally love sharing stories of activism because it's something I did for 10 years, and I truly believe that, one person on their own can't change the world, but when lots of people are taking action towards things, change does start to happen. And actually, today's example is a really great illustration of that because I'll get to the nitty gritty of it. Her name was Lubna HUSSEIN, as I said earlier, and basically, in case you don't know this story, and I'm 99% sure that you don't know who I'm talking about. In fact, I didn't know who this person was until quite recently. I came across her in a survey of the world's most inspiring women who are alive right now, and she was in that 100 group of women all across the world. And she's actually in Sudan. She's a journalist. She's in her 40s now, and basically what happened is that Lubna was a journalist for the UN. She worked in their media department, and she was in a restaurant one day. In fact, I might see if I can actually show you some pictures that I found, although I'm not sure I want to risk my internet connection. What I'll do is I'll put this in the blog. Yeah, I think I'll just talk you through it, and then we're going to share some key points to take away from Lubna's story. Because what essentially happened is that this is a woman who used the media and social media in a really creative way. When something horrible happened to her, that's happened to a lot of other people, but the way that Lubna responded is really interesting and really creative, because what happened was that she was eating in a restaurant in Sudan, which is in Africa. And in case you don't know, Sudan has been an area of conflict for a long time. There's actually been a peace agreement that was signed not that long ago. But what happened was that there was people in the north and people in the south were fighting for a long time, and they came to an agreement. But they have really different cultures, and Lubna lives in the north. And she was out eating with friends, watching a concert in a really nice part of Sudan. Like Sudan. Sometimes when people hear the word Sudan, they think of famines and really poor, pictures of starving children. Actually, Sudan has been going through an economic growth spurt. Oh, that was Chico's tail that you just saw there. He just jumped off the bed. Um, it's got loads of skyscrapers. It's had a lot of investment. I'm not saying it's perfect at all, but it's become quite a happening place in Africa to be. And so she was in the chic area of Sudan called Ridia district, eating dinner with friends, watching a singer. And what Sharia police came into the restaurant and asked all the women to stand up. And they were doing a search of many popular places in Sudan that evening to find women who were wearing trousers instead of long skirts. And Lubna was wearing trousers, and she was wearing a blouse, but she was wearing trousers. And they're not even like leggings, you know, they were like loose-fitting ones. But she was arrested with 10 other women. And what the background to this is that in Sudan, they have, I can read it out to you. There was, since 1989, there's been a very sort of strict regime in power in the north. And they have a law which actually applies to men and women, but it's usually only applicable to women in reality. And so what it is, it means that, I'll read it out to you. It says, whoever commits in a public place an act or conducts himself in an indecent manner or a manner contrary to public morality or wears an indecent or immoral dress which causes annoyance to public feelings shall be punished with whipping, not exceeding 40 lashes, or with fine, or with both. And 2, the act shall be deemed contrary to public morality if it is so considered in the religion of the doer or the custom of the country where the act occurs. What that means in plain language is that if you're caught doing something that's supposedly against public decency, you can be whipped 40 times. And this is what Lubna faced. You know, here's a journalist. She writes for a popular satirical newspaper and worked for the UN at that time. And she was told that she was facing 40 whippings. And this is not just like idle threats. This literally happens all the time. In fact, thousands of women had been whipped in the year before. And the incident I'm talking to you about is it happened in 2009. But Lubna still continues to talk about women's rights today, which is how I came across her. So there she is. She's just been arrested, and she was told that she was going to be whipped in public, not right away, but that's basically the charge that you're given, like the punishment you have to have. And so the other women all pleaded guilty, so that kind of closes the case, and you get the public whippings. But Lubna decided that she was not going to allow that to happen to her, and she asked for a lawyer instead of going and having the flogging. So that delayed her punishment, and then she asked for a trial. And what happened was she went to a hearing, and the judge told her that because she worked for the UN at that time, she couldn't be tried because it's like he said it gave her immunity. So she resigned from the UN just so that she could be tried like an ordinary woman, because she wanted to make a case out of this. And this is where I want people to link up the dots between the power of the media and an individual story. She could have just said, okay, I'll just get this over and done with, I'll go and have the whippings, or I'll pay the fine. But she didn't do that. She resigned from her job and she went to trial, and she was found guilty, obviously, of wearing the trousers. But she wore them into court. There's actually pictures on the internet, you can see it, of her when she's going into trial. And the judge said that she was ordered to pay a fine, which is about 250 Sudanese. Oh God, I've forgotten what the money currency is. Quite a hefty fine by local standards, and she was sent to prison. And what happened was the part where she got really creative, and I'm going to extract some things from her story in a second that you can take away from this, for yourself, whatever you do, because the point of listening to this story is to realize that you can always think a bit creatively, and think of how you can use one thing to trigger a chain reaction. This is exactly what Lubna did, because she sent 500 invitations out to journalists and people that she knew, people all over Sudan, telling them, I invite you to my public flogging. And she started to write articles about it, and word got out about this story. And in fact, it got out all over the media. People were talking about it on Twitter, on blogs. on Facebook. You know, she has a Facebook page. I went and looked at it earlier today, and that, you know, protests happen in England. And so this huge wave of awareness started to spread around the world about, here was a journalist who did nothing except wear trousers into a restaurant and was being made to be publicly flogged. And I stress, you know, she wasn't actually flogged. And I also want to say, you know, sometimes people, I used to be very involved in feminist politics, and sometimes people think, you know, when you share stories like this, that you're kind of portraying non-Western cultures as being, you know, backwards or evil, and Western culture as being perfect. And I have to say, I don't subscribe to that point of view at all. You know, I'm very aware that for women in the West, we don't have a perfect picture either. I wanted to share Lubna's story because of the power of her word, you know, the power of what she did, because the fact that she sent out all those invitations and that she got the story out into the mainstream press in the West and in Arab countries, it became a really big embarrassment for the government. You know, here was this UN journalist facing public whipping, and in fact, she kind of coined this catchphrase, "Whip me if you dare." I'll just say that again, "Whip me if you dare," which I thought was brilliant. And so she, you know, people were tweeting that, people were sharing that, and the government eventually, she went into a prison to serve her sentence. But the government was so embarrassed by this time, by her story and by everything that happened, that, you know, I read this on blogs. You know, it's not completely verified, but basically someone paid her bail, and that someone was a journalists union that was part of the government at that time, of the coalition. So her bail was paid so that she could come out of jail. And she didn't want to go. She wanted to stay there. She had a month-long sentence. It wasn't that long, just a month. But still, just a month for wearing trousers. You know, that's still 4 weeks of your life. That's, if you just watching this, imagine being sent to prison for a month because of what you were wearing. I'm sure you wouldn't be that happy. And so she went and met all the women who were in the prison and was removed a few days later. And since then, she didn't go back to the UN. She's continued being a freelance journalist, and she writes about women's rights issues today. And she posts a lot on her Facebook wall. She posts about how to use social media if you're some kind of activist, or you have some kind of cause that you're working towards. And I wanted to highlight her story because a lot of people haven't heard of her. And I just thought this was one of the bravest things I've heard of in a while, because, you know, I don't know if anyone's very familiar with the UN, but I studied a master's degree in development studies, which is all about the gap between poor and rich countries. And a lot of people I was studying with worked at the UN or wanted to work for the UN. And it's kind of like this amazing job if you get it, because you know, guaranteed job, you're working with a prestigious organization, you're a stable salary, you're also, you know, like the fact that she wouldn't have faced the public flogging because she worked for the UN, you're kind of protected by this international organization. And she left that to make a point because she wanted to defend all women. And I'm going to give you some space there, Lott, if you want to share anything that came to your mind as you heard about this. But I just want to read out first something that she said, because interestingly enough, I read a lot of articles about this, and there were some people saying, you know, like Forbes magazine, the big American magazine, they ran an article on this, and the journalist said, you know, some of my friends who live in Sudan said to me, well, was this really true? Because we wear trousers in Sudan and no one says anything to us, and you know, and we don't have any problems. So why did she get arrested? We don't understand. Was it about something else? And so the journalist actually asked Lubna about that, you know, that question. And this is what she said. She said, yes, there are women who wear trousers in Khartoum, but as long as that 1991 law is in effect, the one that I read out earlier, they are at the mercy of the police officer's mood and perhaps even his financial state. Some women try to bribe the policeman to avoid arrest, she told the journalist by email. The regime uses the law when it's politically useful to. When it wants to appease the Islamist groups, it arrests women. If they arrested me because I'm a journalist, then on what grounds did they arrest those 43,000 women in 2008? And that was the number of women that were arrested for breaking the same quote-unquote law. She said, the law targets just women. I've never heard of a man arrested for indecent clothing. And furthermore, the law doesn't even define indecent. It's left up to the police officer's whim. And she said also, like in terms of you know, like the effect that it had on other women, she said that there was 10 people that were in the court where she was heard. There was other women who'd been tried for the same thing, and 10 of them had already been publicly whipped, flogged. And she said in the beginning they were very sad, and some of them were in a bad psychological state. But when they saw me on TV and in the newspaper, one of them called me to say this was good. In the beginning, her neighbors said, and her family didn't believe she was flogged just because of the clothes she was wearing. So she called me to say thank you. And just a bit of background, sometimes women are arrested because they're in a car with a man they don't know, or because they're with a guy they don't know in the streets. So it's not just for what you're wearing, it can be all kinds of things. So women that have been accused of this, sometimes it's so ridiculous that people even in Khartoum don't believe it, and they say to them, is it really that? Were you not whipped for something else? And so this story brought to light how many women were being flogged because of what they're wearing. And she said, I will take my case to the upper court, even to the Constitutional Court. And if they find me guilty, I am ready to receive not only 40 lashes, I am ready for 40,000. If all women must be flogged for what they wear, I am ready to be flogged 40,000 times. So I just thought, what an amazing story, you know, just incredible that this woman gave up a nice secure job, had the audacity to tell the media and to send out 500 invitations to her public flogging, and took a stand basically for all women. You know, she didn't just make it about herself. So Lisa Lotta, is there anything you would like to share?
Wow, it's an amazing story. This woman had a lot of courage and a lot of creativity, and also that she find those ways to do it. I mean, a lot of women should just be quiet and take the punishment and think there is no way out.
Yeah.
But because this creative mind, and she wanted to make it go out there for all women. It's just wonderful. I'm just wow.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring also to hear it, that shit, you can do something, you can change things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I haven't heard about this before, but thank you, Sandy. It's really, really inspiring to listen to this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. When I read it, I couldn't believe it, because you know, sometimes you hear a story like that. And by the way, we have a comment here from Mark. So hi, Mark Barris. But my name's not Lubna. I'd have to say I'm not Lubna. I'm Sandy. Yeah. So she, you know, this is actually one of the things I wanted to pick out about her story, was that she didn't just, you know, she didn't just kind of complain about it or pay the fine, or you know, she fought really creatively, and she linked what was happening to her to the bigger picture and her vision of women not being treated like that, and women being treated just as well as men are treated. And so she didn't just focus on, you know, on her story. You know, like sometimes you do hear about people that are like, I've been misjustly treated, or there's been a case of injustice. But she kept talking about all women. You know, she was saying, if me, a middle-class, respectable UN worker, is being arrested and can be flogged, then how do they treat women who are less, less social status, for whatever reason? And she made a stand for all women. So I think, as one of the things that you can take away is linking what you do to a bigger picture. And whatever you do, you might not be an activist. You might be thinking, I'm not.
I just got into me. She didn't play small. She didn't play small here. She didn't really expand it and go out for the whole universe to change it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because she was like, well, why should any woman go through this? And she said, and I love the speech she gave where she said, if it takes 40,000 lashes, then I'm willing to do that. And it reminded me a little bit of, I think sometimes when you add emotion to it, it's so powerful when you anything that you're doing, sharing your voice, and whether you're campaigning for something or you're just passionate about something and you're telling people, sometimes we sort of back off of thinking big and using emotional language like that. But it's really powerful. It reminds me of when Nelson Mandela, he gave a famous speech before he went to prison, before the 27 years that he was imprisoned. And he said at the end of his talk, I am willing to die for what I believe in. He went to the worst possible scenario and said that he didn't mind, he didn't care, he was willing to do it because he was so passionate about what he believed in. And I think sometimes people are so they don't want to offend or they don't want to sound too dramatic, so they sound, everyone can sound a little bit polite sometimes. I think it's a great thing to take away from LUBNA's story. Don't be afraid to think big, and even as a campaigner, as a political activist, I worked on a campaign that changed British law, and someone actually asked me the other day, what was a big thing that you did in your campaigning, like how did you talk about it? And we would say, we actually campaigned on a really small thing, like a legal loophole. It was like it wasn't, we weren't trying to change racial segregation or like giving women the right to vote. We were talking about a little licensing law, but we linked it to all women everywhere, and we kept saying, if you let this slide, you let all of women slide, and you let our rights start to disappear. And we said, if you don't take action, this can happen. And we see a world where all women are equal, where women don't have to deal with this, and we need to keep working towards that. So we constantly talked way beyond the little thing that was actually, the technical part of the campaign. So if you're a massage therapist or you're an artist, there's the thing that you do every day, but then what's the bigger picture? Like what's the thing that makes you want to do it? What's going to happen if you don't do it? I think people can add that to what they're doing and talk about it, and it will help create more interest in what they're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what she did really well. And another thing that she did really well, I picked out 4 points actually. The second one was that she used controversy. Because, imagine like Lisa Lott, imagine like sending out 500 invitations saying, come and witness my public flogging.
Yeah.
Like, people were like, what the hell? It wasn't exactly, it's kind of like talking about something people don't want to think about probably, because I'm sure, if you look on YouTube, there's been lots of other cases like this, and it's unfortunately it still goes on. But she sort of took the thing that people were probably trying not to think about and put it right in their face. And it's like, look, this is happening, come in there. And she kind of turned it around a bit and got creative. And she literally wrote out these invitations saying, I cordially invite you to come and witness my public flogging. Wow. In the same way that you might invite someone to go and witness, the communion of your first son or a wedding or something.
Yeah, I mean, no, this was something physical, but you know, people, and then you can go to yourself. You sit in the psychic sometimes. Oh, I cannot go out, or I cannot do this. But when you take the step and do it, and it doesn't matter, you do it for the whole big picture, and
Yeah,
yeah, you survive. You survive it. You have,
exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean, there is no one is going to hit you physic. It's the just the thought and the feeling that stops you from doing it, to go there, to take the step, to change
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
It's the thought and the feeling of what could go wrong often, isn't
yeah,
it? Like,
yeah.
as though that's going to be the exact thing that happens. And actually, what I think people like Lubna um, and change makers that really create change, they don't think about the worst case scenario. You know, they just they get an
Go.
idea and they act on it,
Yeah,
and they don't
yes.
allow themselves to be talked out of it by their own mind or by other people.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah,
what's so amazing with her story. And actually, that links into the next point, the third point, which is that she had this burning desire. You know, like you can feel. When I read so many articles by her whilst researching today, and she had this huge sense of, this is not supposed to be happening. We can change this. It doesn't have to be like this. This is ridiculous, you know. And she was willing to lose her job, you know, to resign from the UN, to go to a trial, to face actually being physically flogged and being ridiculed perhaps by people that she sees every day who couldn't believe why a woman was doing all of this. So she, you know, you can't do all of that if you don't really care about what it is you're doing. And you probably heard this a lot if you, you know, if you watch hangouts and you're doing any kind of personal development. Um, but I didn't used to even know about these kinds of things until I started reading more and, you know, but knowing what they are, like consciously being aware of what makes people tick when they make stuff happen, it helps you do that too. So having a burning desire for the thing that you're doing, and knowing that it's like you're this snowball that's not going to be stopped by anything, and you just like you roll over anything in your way because you're not just going to let like a little snowball or a little rock let you, you know, stop you. You just go right through it. And I think that's what, if you're watching and you don't feel like you have a burning desire for something, then find something to have a burning desire about. You know, like
I
and
found out yesterday, if I may just add,
yeah,
about
yeah,
this
please.
desire, because I had an event about the products I'm making, the ecological stuff, and then we were I have a lot of honey in the products, and I was starting to talk about our pollinators, the bees,
Ah,
and
yeah,
I really get emotional because the bees are sick, they are dying because of a lot of stuff going around with pollution and how we treat the environment and stuff like that. And I got really emotional because if the bees go away, if the pollinators go away, there are not much left for us. There are not going to be any fruit, food,
yeah,
or stuff like that. And that I really felt, this is why I'm doing it. This is why I I want to make a change in people's mind, what they are using and what they are wearing, eating, and have on the skin, and so on. So it's really that there I felt this burning desire for change. Um,
I love it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I find myself, I was starting to cry when
yeah.
talking about
Uh,
it yesterday, but that was okay. Yeah, it comes so from inside. It's what this is why I'm doing it.
yeah. And
So
that's such a
yeah,
great example. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa, because
yeah,
it's a great
thank
example
you.
of um of actually a saying that I heard recently. You know, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not big enough. You know, like if the reason why you do what you do doesn't get you emotional like it just did, like you described there, then it's not really what you want to be doing. And I think that's really important because when you think about, you know, what will happen if you don't do what you do, that's often what makes us cry. So you can, like, watching this, you can think about that, you know, like, what do I have? Because sometimes it's not that what we're doing isn't something that will make us cry. It's just that we haven't linked it yet to something that can make us cry. You know, like sometimes you're doing something and you don't quite know why you've been led to do it or you've been drawn to it. And I think asking yourself that question, you know, why am I doing this, or what's the bigger reason behind this? You'll start to get more awareness of it. You know, even if it's not right away. Like I'm sure you didn't realize when you started working with honey that was something that was going to become a part of it, did you?
No, no, not at all. So yeah, it's so interesting
exactly.
to see what leads to what, and yeah.
And a great resource actually is, in case you don't know, is the TED Talk "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek. I'll put it in the event link so that people watching can go and have a look at that if you haven't already seen it. I talk about it quite a lot in these hangouts because it's really key, I think, to any kind of campaigning or sharing your voice or doing anything as an entrepreneur, because you can't be an entrepreneur and do it half-heartedly, you know. You can do a job half-heartedly, but if you're an entrepreneur and you don't really believe in what you're doing, you know, it's not going to work. And it could just not be very fun. So that talk is an amazing resource to get more clarity. You know, why did I start doing this? What makes me cry about this? And you'll probably find that's actually a really empowering realization. It doesn't mean that you sit there like depressed all the time.
No.
It just means that, yeah, but you know why, you know.
Yeah.
And it will help you
find out your whys. What is your why?
Yeah.
Your why. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the difference, come back to LUBNA's story, is, you know, and I said this earlier, LUBNA linked it constantly to all women. You know, she didn't just say, look what happened to me. She said, if this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone, and it is happening to anyone, and it has to stop. And this is what women should be living, you know, like when she's talking about what she wanted to see instead. So the final thing, actually, that I wanted to bring out from her story was the fact that she created ripples of change. Because I have to make a confession. When I was researching her, I was trying to find some information on what she's done since then, because this was 2009, and I was looking to see if other women have been flogged or whipped since then, and they have. And there's even been some other high-profile stories. I think only one big one, as big as Lubna's. And I found myself thinking, well, maybe it didn't really do much, that this whole story, maybe it just kind of blew over and nothing happened, because it doesn't seem to change the law. It still seems to be going on. And I suddenly had to, like, pinch myself, because I realized, well, hang on, you know, that's exactly the kind of thinking that keeps most people never doing anything, and in like this zombie mode where people just kind of turn a blind eye to stuff, and they don't think about what they would like to see in the world and what their children would like, you know, what they'd like to bring their children into. And the thing is that change and transformation, this is the final point I wanted to make, was change and transformation isn't just like one big earthquake in one go. It's lots of little changes, you know, lots of little, it's like, you know, your sculpture, and you're tapping away at the all the crap. In fact, there's actually a famous saying, I think, from about Michelangelo, when he was unveiling one of his beautiful sculptures, and they said to him, "How did you make this beautiful sculpture?" And he said, "Well, all I did was I took away all the marble that shouldn't be there until I had the sculpture." And I think change is like that. You know, you're tapping away at all the stuff that's stopping what you know is possible. And so Lubna's story, you know, she didn't change the law. It's still going on, but it took women a step closer. And every time there's been new cases, her story is repeated. And so it's made a chink in the armor, you know? And you have to like realize that any action that you take is making a chink in the armor. And if no one makes chinks, you know, then we're all waiting for this massive eruption. And sometimes that does happen, but more often than not, it's actually, you know, lots of little changes and people working together that starts to actually move things. So she created ripples of change, and that's what all of us can do. Sorry, Liselotte?
Give it time. It's that also people get, if it doesn't change tomorrow, oh, it doesn't work. It's that like that. You have to give it time.
Yeah, exactly.
It took him a couple of hours to make this sculpture, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't do it for one day. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
So I mean, what she have done, you can maybe see in the future. Maybe not right now, but she has done something that has changed maybe mindsets for a lot of people, and it's going to show off a little bit later. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Margaret Mead said, that famous quote, "Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has." And you know, sometimes you hear quotes like that and you think, what, how does she know that? You know, what is she basing that on? And I actually looked up where she said this, you know, who was this lady, why was she saying this? And she was an anthropologist, and she studied all the major changes that have happened in history, you know, like a big project. And this is what she found, was that often it wasn't, you know, a massive revolution of like thousands of people coming together. Like, you know, sometimes we think of Gandhi with the 200 million people in India, or the French Revolution. She found that often change is a group of smaller people taking a lot of action and moving, you know, very clearly towards a set place, a set vision, a set destination. And so that's where that expression came from, and that's what all of us is capable of doing. You know, we really are. You know, whether you're a mother that's passionate about homeschooling, or you make ecological products because you don't believe that we should be abusing the environment in the way we are with our toiletries. You know, like I know that you do, Liselotte. We can all play a role in helping to move towards the things we want to see. And it doesn't have to be like a serious thing, like you become like Mother Teresa. It can just be something you enjoy doing. Yeah. Like sometimes people think that's what it has to be. But that's partly why I wanted to start these hangouts, was because I realized that not doing things like that made me feel weird, you know, like I felt a bit empty after a while, because only focusing on, you know, like I felt for a long time when I was an activist, people told me to go out and have more fun and not be so serious and not go to so many meetings, and and so for like 4 years that's what I did. I was like teaching Zumba, having fun, like doing all this stuff, but I missed thinking about, you know, well, what would I like to see in the world and what can I do towards that? And so the cool thing about the internet is that you can use it to help raise awareness, to help tell people about things, to, you know, make money, to be able to contribute to other things as well. And you can use it, I believe, to become the change that you want to see in the world, if that's what you want to do. So I hope this case study has been inspiring to you, and that you can take away some useful things from it and think, well, how could I link what I do to a bigger picture? How could I create ripples of change? And then the other points that I mentioned, using controversy, like how could I use something perhaps a little bit controversial, or how could I just incorporate a little bit more of that in my work and what I do, and having a burning desire, like checking in with yourself and just being sure that you have a burning desire. I think those are the main things we can take away from LUBNA's story. There's obviously loads of things, but you know, in a short hangout, can't cover all of them. And I just wanted to like pick out some of the main things. So do you want to share anything before we finish, Liselotte?
Not right now. I'm just I enjoyed this very very much. I love these hangouts.
Ah,
We get
cool. Thank
so
you. Me too.
inspired, and there's a lot of thoughts in my head. Oh yeah, how can I start to doing this and be a little
Yeah,
bit more controversial and find a funny way to do it.
yeah.
So
It does.
yeah, you can both enjoy it. It doesn't have to be either or, serious
Exactly.
or have fun. Why not combine it? So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Oh, I like
yeah,
that. Thank you for that final point. That's really, yeah, it doesn't have to be like this is when you do serious stuff.
yeah.
And this is
Now,
when you
now
do
we
fun
are in
stuff.
the
You know, it
serious
can be,
corner, and then we have to put on our serious face.
yeah, exactly. Save the world. You know, and I used to be really like that. And now I think, well,
Yeah,
you
me
can
too.
still have a vision of
Yeah,
things that you know are possible here and and feel more fulfilled because you're working towards them. But it doesn't
mm.
have to mean that you're crying and that you're protesting on the streets. Not that I'm saying that's bad, but you know,
No, no,
there's other ways of doing it.
yeah.
So, yeah. So if you'd
And
like
you,
more information about what Lisa, Lott, and I do, then check the links on our blogs and you can get it there. If there's anything that wasn't clear, then let me know. You know, leave a comment in this event, and I'll see it on Google Plus or on the blogs otherwise. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me, Lisa, Lotta.
thank you for having me.
And yeah, we're very happy to have you here. And the lady that I talked about, just so that people can go and check her out afterwards if they want to, was Lubna Hussein. I wrote about her on my blog, so you can get information about her there. Um, spelled LUBNA and then HUSSEIN. So go and check her out and see this amazing woman because she deserves to have more people knowing about her. And have an amazing evening, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. See you next week.
See you.
Bye, Lisa Lotta. Bye.